Okay, thanks for clicking. We're going to be talking to John Fonte today, who has written a piece recently. I guess you didn't write it. They were remarks you delivered to the Philadelphia Society, which were then published.
Well,
Uh,
I wrote the remarks.
yeah, okay, exactly. The title of which is The American Way of Life is Under Threat. So that should be provocative enough for you to stick around with us and for us to talk after I tell you who he is. John Fonte is a senior fellow and director of the Center for American Common Culture at the Hudson Institute in DC. He writes and edits books and essays and articles as senior fellows do. His topics are many and varied. They include citizenship, history, civic education, patriotism, and assimilation and immigration, again, among many others. John, you are the first double guest or the first person to do two of these conversations with, but we are doing that because we very much wanted to talk to you about the remarks. Uh, so, why is the American way of life under threat, and what, if anything, has philanthropy had to do with it?
Right. Well, this we had a meeting of the Philadelphia Society, and that may meet about every 6 months. It's one of the older conservative organizations, actually founded by Bill Buckley, Milton Friedman back about 1963. And the question before the Philadelphia Society was, given the nature of what's going on today, and given America's past as a revolutionary society, and conservatism's idea, basically, supporting in a sense the status quo. What should the conservative movement look like today, given the revolutionary past? Should it be revolutionary or conservative in the sense of preserving status quo, preserving our institutions? So that was the argument presented for the speakers. And my main premise, the premise of my speech, was we're more in a revolutionary age than a status quo age. Why? Because liberalism, the left, progressivism, has changed really over the last, now, so we say 20, 30 years. I think of the days of, say, Reagan and Mondale. Mondale at that time represented a loyal opposition. He opposed Reagan's policies, let's say, in big government, healthcare, this and that, policy issues. But there was a sort of a core agreement on some of the basic truths of what American liberal democracy stood for. So it was this concept of a loyal opposition. What we've seen, we've just seen in the last week, in the last couple of weeks, is this is not a loyal opposition. It's an opposition that thinks the current government, the elected government of the United States, is illegitimate, and thought when the current president was president previously, in the 8 years ago, that was illegitimate, and there were immediate, instead of a honeymoon period, there was immediate opposition. So how did this happen? Well, it sort of happened gradually over the last few decades. You remember the previous Republican president, George W. Bush. I remember him being called Hitler, as a matter of fact, and he was this crazy guy with Texas cowboy boots and dumb and warmonger and Hitlerian and so on. So this has been building a long time. What's the fruits? What is it? So my original title for the speech was the philosophical and practical threats to the American way of life. So what we've seen, and philanthropy has been a big push in this, is a change in American liberalism and a change in the left, where they've started to reject essentially what we used to call the core American values. Instead of equality of the Declaration of Independence, which is sort of equality before the law, or you could even say equality of opportunity, equality of citizenship. Really, that's what the 13, 14, 15 amendments were about, equality of citizenship. We have equity. The equity is very different from equality. Equity means equality of result, and equality of result by group. these are the groups are marginalized groups. The United States is divided. I mean, you've heard this many times, but I guess it is the core of the argument. The core of the left argument now is the oppressor oppressed, and then there are two types of groups. The oppressors, that would be whites, males, heterosexuals, and those who are oppressed, which would be LGBTQ of all groups, minorities, the women, which of course represent a statistical majority, but they're a marginalized group allegedly, and these groups keep expanding. I mean, 10 years ago there was no question. I mean, transgender was not on the table. Now it is. This is another marginalized group. So we could expect new in the future, right? So what's coming around the corner? Maybe polymorphy. Now it used to be called polygamy. Now it's polyamory. The philosophical basis for that is already there, right? If two people love each other, what difference does it make what gender they are? Well, fine. Well, why two? If three people love each other, why shouldn't they be allowed to get married? If there are three of them, two men, two women, maybe a transgender, whatever combination you may want. These are human beings. They love like any other human being. So why aren't they, why wouldn't they be? So that's around the corner, I think. Because the project can never end. It's ongoing. That's what Che Guevara said. The struggle never ends. That's what the t-shirts, if you want a Che Guevara's t-shirt, that's what they're saying. So that's at the philosophical level, that's the challenge to the American way of life. What's the American way of life? Was not built on ever expanding group of marginalized groups. It was built upon what Jefferson called in his letter to Lighthouse Harry Lee. Lee asked him, what's the Declaration of Independence about? What's it based on? Jefferson said, well, it's based on civilization. It's the writings, it's nothing new here, he said. It's the writings of Aristotle and Cicero, of Algernon Sidney and John Locke. So in other words, it's the civilization. It's based on the idea of man. What is that? Well, there's a moral order. Human beings created by their creator. Natural law. This is not it's not socially constructed. It's discovered. So all of these things were sort of the philosophical basis, and that's now currently rejected by the left. And they say the nitty gritty is equity over equality. Instead of individual citizens, it's groups, marginalized, and these are groups that one is born into or become marginalized groups. So it's a totally different way, totally different value system. At the heart of this system, the current system, the last couple of years, of course, is DEI, diversity, equity, inclusion, which is the sort of the framework for all of this. So that's sort of the broad general issues that I was discussing in my paper and how American conservatives have to deal with this. One thing I think I want to bring up, which I think is absolutely crucial now compared to the past, was the left's view of America. In the past, even the most left-wing groups. So we say, well, America is good. We're just sort of off track. Now America itself is a problem. For example, in the 1930s, you had the communists. The communists were running for president along with the socialists. They were running for president. And the head of the Communist Party, William C. Foster, at the time said, "What is communism? Communism is 100% 20th century percent Americanism. Communism is 100% Americanism. We're just the Americanism of the 20th century. That's all." Well, Kamala Harris did not say what is progressivism. Progressivism is 21st century Americanism. They're not going to use the term Americanism. America itself is a problem. What do they say about America? The previous president, Joe Biden, said it was systemically racist. So think about that for a minute. Systemically racist. If the society is systemically racist, that's the system, right? The American system, the society. So if that's racist, it's evil from the beginning. It is and always has been systemically racist. then it's a rotten society. That's the point. They wouldn't use. I mean, that's why they're saying it's systemically sexist or xenophobic. It hates foreigners, or transphobic. It hates trans people. It's a hate-filled society. It's a racist society. It's systemically a problem. The system itself. So, I mean, the communists were not saying this in the 1930s. They were saying America, capitalism is bad, but America really shouldn't be capitalist. So America is a revolutionary. Lincoln was a revolutionary. Thomas Paine, they would have been communists. There's no progressive talking like that today. So they reject, the progressives, they reject historic America, both the principles, equality as opposed to equity, and the practice and the culture, the American story, where the War of 1812, the winning of the West. No, that was colonialism. That was genocide against an indigenous people. That wasn't what Theodore Roosevelt called the winning of the West. First World War, Second World War. No, that was expansion of American imperialism. Fighting, the Cold War. No, that was just two imperialist powers fighting it out. So their vision of America was very different.
Now, when arguments like the one you were summarizing there are made in the democratic electoral context, they don't seem to do so well, but they have seemed to do well. You can tell me, before program officers of large foundations in America, what's the difference? Why did they need to rely on philanthropy for success if they did, when democratic election victories were and so forth coming for this argument, this way of thinking, this worldview? What did philanthropy have to do with the rise of this thinking?
Well, I think philanthropy had a lot to do with it. It's part of the progressive coalition, part of the woke coalition, if you will, or woke progressive. It's been promoting it for more than half a century. Going back, we can discuss later Congressman Reese and his investigation back in the 50s. That was more the worry about communism and socialism. So that was more of an economic challenge to American free enterprise. Now there's you say the challenge to culture. But this has been going on. The major American foundations are an integral part of the progressive coalition. The goal of the progressive coalition is the transformation of the United States. President Obama said it perfectly. We are, right before the election, the 2008 election. We are a couple of days away from the fundamental transformation of the United States of America. Fundamental transformation. That means, again, there's something wrong with society. It's got to be fundamentally transformed. If you're married, you have your wife or your husband wants to fundamentally transform you, there's a problem. There's something wrong. Fundamental transformation, a slight improvement, okay. That's not what they're saying. They're saying fundamental transformation. And long before Obama was saying this politically, the foundations were saying this. I've been around for a while. I remember the 80s. I remember late the 70s. What were they saying? They were saying, think globally, act locally. What's missing from that equation? The nation, America, the democratic nation state. Act globally. So it's all global, I call transnational progressivism or global progressivism. It's since we can't get what we want democratically, we have to act on the global scale or locally, strictly local. Maybe in Seattle, you can have a government. They can set up a no-go zone in Seattle or something. That's acting locally. Globally is Davos, and that an international law that supersedes American law, and that's what international lawyers working in the Biden administration, but before that, in the Obama administration, some even in the Clinton administration. Not all, but some, were saying that international law is superior. This is Harold Coe, who worked in the Obama, leading law professor, Yale Law School. What did he say? He said that there's no difference between American law and international law. It's simply an extension. And we've got to, digitize and put international law, which you call transnational law, into the American Constitution. So that's acting globally. So that's all of that. So the foundations were saying this 40 years ago, 50 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
The 70s were 50 years ago. They were saying it then.
Mm-hmm.
Who was saying it? Ford, Rockefeller, Carnegie, Mellon. What are they saying now? They're saying the same thing. What's Mellon doing now?
Mm-hmm.
Mellon has a monuments project, $500 million. That's $500 million. What are they trying to do? They're trying to reimagine American monuments. Too many monuments to dead white males, to Alexander Hamilton, to Jefferson, to Madison, to Lincoln, for that matter, to Washington. So we had a massive uprising, 2020, George Floyd riots. They took down a lot of these monuments. So what does Mellon want to do? Well, Mellon's had some commissions, locally in Portland, in Chicago, in Seattle, that gets groups together. Who are these groups? Well, they're left-wing partisan groups. What are they supposed to do? They're supposed to figure out what to do with these monuments. Do we want to keep the monuments off? Do we put them back? Do we put them back? How do we put them back? So, say in Portland, there's a monument to the pioneers. Okay, they said that's gone. We don't want to put that back. There's a monument to Theodore Roosevelt. What do we do there? Well, we can put it back. There's a monument to George Washington. This is even better. What do we do there? Well, we can put it back, but with signage, signs underneath explaining who this guy was. This guy Washington. Well, he's a slave owner. So let's put that in. So that's the signage. And he killed Indians. So he might even be involved in the genocide of Indians. So that would be part of the signage. We can put the statue back, but it's got to explain what a bad guy Washington was. So that's and who's paying for this? The Mellon Foundation. They want to change the Capitol Rotunda. Too many pictures of these white guys that the states have sent. So let's have some new people. Let's have some American Indians. We can find a transgender person. That's fine. Certainly Harvey Milk, LGBTQ community should, and plus a never ending. Let's get some new statues in there. Let's reimagine American history. So this is the Mellon Foundation. They're spending, again, $500 million on this. Mm-hmm. They're doing it now. They've gotten bolder. I mean, if 50 years ago they wouldn't have been said, let's consider Washington a bad guy. Mm-hmm. He would have been. They might have said slave owner, but mm-hmm. The negativity wouldn't there. They've come up with a new term for slave owners. It used to be Washington, Jefferson, Madison. They were just slave owners. Now they're enslavers. That's the term.